Good morning. Our North Carolina military business session will begin at 9 o'clock. Adapt and be left behind, or be left behind. AI strategies for securing and delivering DoD contracts. A few housekeeping notes. Attendee microphones and video will be disabled with exception of your moderator and presenters to improve our webinar quality. We encourage each of you to use the chat function to provide us your name, your company, your location, and your email address. Many of you submitted questions during the registration process, and we thank you for that. And those questions have been forwarded to our presenters. Should any questions arise during the presentation, please use your Q&A function, not the chat, for questions. Time permitting, questions will be entered and the Q&A will be presented to our speakers, again, time permitting. Today's presentation deck will be sent to you. This session, however, will not be publicly recorded. Please see a slide for our upcoming NCMB events, and our session will start shortly. Thank you for joining us, especially our West Coast guests who had an early wake up today. Thank you. And next slide, JC. Good morning again. It's 9 o'clock. It's time to get started. My name's Lee Moritz Jr. I serve the North Carolina Military Business Center as a regional program manager and the textile industry leader for our team. My office is located in Conover, North Carolina, co-located with the Manufacturer Solutions Center, part of the Catawba Valley Community College. MSC is a facility offering textile and furniture testing and innovation services for legacy companies as well as company startups. The North Carolina Military Business Center is an entity of the state of North Carolina, serving all 100 counties from offices in 15 North Carolina community colleges. We are headquartered in Fayetteville Community College. We are the only state-sponsored agency in the country offering this type of assistance and industry events at no to low cost for our companies. Our website is ncmbc.us, and our business focus is supporting our warfighters. Manufacturing is at a turning point. AI isn't the future, it's the present, and it's already delivering impactful results, reducing equipment downtime, quality defects, enhancing supply resilience, optimizing raw material procurement, and even strengthening our bids for winning government contracts. The message is clear. Embrace an AI strategy or risk being left behind. Let me draw your attention to a recent simulation that underscores this urgency. During the 2023 Camoland War Game conducted by the Defense Logistics Agency in collaboration with CNA Research Group, participants simulated a scenario of overlapping global conflict contingency operations requiring a dramatic surge in textile production, tripling the normal output in just 90 days. The results were stark. The domestic industrial base could only deliver 60% of that surge demand, opposing serious gaps in readiness and responsiveness. This is a red flag for national security and a call to modernize our industrial capabilities with tools like AI that can enable agility, real-time decision-making, and surge responsiveness. From my business with industry, and particularly among those small to medium-sized companies, I've heard a recurring theme from executives. There's a keen interest in AI strategies, but also hesitation. Why? Many executives fear missteps in direction, waste of limited resource bandwidth, and unclear return on investment. This confusion is real and also costly. This session is designed precisely to cut through the hype, dispel confusion, and equip leaders from manufacturing and even service sector with strategic clarity and practical insight. To guide us through the critical questions every corporate leader should be asking and provide answers that can redefine your next steps, we're joined by two seasoned AI professionals. They'll help you translate urgency into strategy and inertia into action. It is my pleasure to introduce our speakers. Adrianne Kroll, the Assistant Director of Quality at NC State University Industry Expansion Solution, IES, where she helps manufacturers strengthen quality systems, streamline processes, and adopt emerging technologies. With a background in systems engineering and early career experience in the defense industry, Adrianne has led cross-functional improvement initiatives across multiple industries and environments. She has expanded her focus, guiding clients in exploring practical, value-driven applications of artificial intelligence in manufacturing. Adrianne holds a BS in electrical engineering, technology, and a MS in systems engineering, and is a certified continuous improvement facilitator. Ron Berry is CEO of Artificially Digital, an AI company based in Cary, North Carolina. Ron and his team prides themselves in making scattered data into clear, actionable decisions using the right AI tool for the business challenge. Ron has global experience leading digital transformations across tech, finance, logistics, and manufacturing. Ron is known for blending executive strategic visions with engineering precision. He holds an MBA from Wharton and a BS in management science and engineering from Stanford. Adrianne and Ron, we welcome you and thank you for working with us from the North Carolina Military Business Center to host this message. As a reminder to our guests, please post any questions during the presentation in the Q&A, and we will get to those as time allows after the presentation. I yield over to you, Adrianne and Ron. Thank you.
Yes. Good morning. Yeah, thank you so much, Lee, for that introduction. I know Ron and I are both really honored to be here this morning. Feel free to go on to the next slide. So here's just a welcome, a little bit about what we'll talk about today. But before we jump in, I really just want to start with a quick true story about someone I think that many of you can relate to. I call it my Michael moment. So Michael is a quality manager that is working at a manufacturing company. I've been helping implement ISO 9001 over the past few months. So one day during one of our project check-ins, Michael just looked exhausted. You know, he told me everything was piling up. Updates, writing procedures, corrective actions. And then right in the middle of all of that, his only quality technician resigned. And so he's like, Adrian, I hear you talking to me about the need for preventative maintenance in my plant, but I just don't even have the time to make a checklist for the operators to use for maintenance. I'm just drowning. And I said, Michael, have you tried AI? He just chuckled. He said, my wife keeps talking about AI, but I don't think it's actually really useful. And so I said, Michael, let's log in right now and try it. And so I helped him set up a quick free Chat GPT account. And I asked him, what would you normally include in a checklist? So he rattled off a few items, and 5 minutes later, literally 5 minutes from start to finish, we had a working draft checklist. So one that he could take out immediately to give to his operators on the plant floor, and he just had to tweak it based on their feedback. Michael just sat there looking at the screen, and he's like, I had no idea it was that easy. So that's the moment it clicked, not just for Michael, but for a lot of folks like Michael. AI isn't about replacing jobs, it's about reclaiming your time and your energy for the things that matter most to you. So Mike didn't need to be a tech expert, he just needed to take the first step. And that's really what we're here today to talk about is exploring AI, not just for someday, but for now. So whether it's drafting proposals or analyzing RFPs, or you're just trying to get your head above water, um, so that everything's not on fire all the time. So let's take a few steps to just to talk about that this morning, starting with why it matters now. So please go forward to the next slide. All right, so why does this matter now? Our current administration has really made AI a priority, and that has flowed down to many of the departments in our government. So, thinking about the Department of Commerce, where NIST is housed, National Institute of Standards and Technologies, they have developed a risk management framework for AI, as well as they've been charged with helping develop AI metrics, and then you've also seen it flow down to the Department of Defense, not just for innovation, but really as an enabler of national security. And so some of you may have seen just recently the White House put out America's AI Action Plan. If you get a chance, just go take a look at it. It has some good information about in it about our action plan. And so just some statistics, the global military smart textile market, um, and so think of that as referring to a growing industry that's really focused on advanced fabrics for military use. So think about integrating electronics and sensors and AI-driven tech directly into uniforms and gear and equipment. So they're projecting that that market is going to grow to 3.34 billion by 2033. And generative AI spending, and I'll talk in a minute about how you define generative AI, but spending in generative AI just to enhance supply chains is projected to reach 55 billion by 2029. So think about that. We're only 4 years away from that projection. So that's not a long ways off when you really think about it. And then that's on a national level. So on a statewide level, in North Carolina, there was a recent Hanover research forecast that looked at North Carolina's AI job growth, and they said it's expected to outpace statewide labor growth 3 to 1, adding about 20,000 new AI related positions. And even though North Carolina only is currently accounting for about 3% of US AI job postings, we're seeing rapid growth, particularly in the life sciences and in manufacturing tech. Next slide, please. So why AI for government contracts? So federal contracting is really, from what I understand, more competitive than it has been in the past. Agencies are moving faster, small businesses are stretched, but now AI tools can hopefully help level that playing field. So think about all the repetitive tasks and steps that are normally involved in proposals. So reading the RFP, extracting requirements, writing boilerplate, matching resumes. AI can help automate or speed up many of these tasks. A lot of large firms are already using AI-powered systems, but now AI is really at a point where it's a lot more accessible to small and medium-sized businesses. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed, trying to respond to multiple opportunities or you've missed deadlines, AI can give you just that extra bit of capacity to help you keep up. All right, next slide. All right, so before we go any further, I always want to baseline with terminology. As Lee mentioned, early on in my career, I was a contractor for the Navy, and we could speak whole sentences in acronyms, right? So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So here's some just foundation. So when you hear the term artificial intelligence, that's really a broad term, and it represents a broad field of computer science. So think about computers doing tasks that normally need human intelligence, problem solving, decision making. When you break down one level lower, that's when we talk about machine learning. That involves teaching computers to learn from the examples that we give it and then improve over time. Out of machine learning comes generative AI. So that's AI that is creating things. So it's creating new text or new images or new video from what we give it instead of just analyzing it. And so you hear the term model. A model is the trained brain, if you will, of AI that is making predictions and decisions. So when you hear the term large language model, that's a very advanced AI model, and it's trained on massive amounts of data so that you can use it to have conversations. All right, so out of large language models come what we call generative pre-trained transformers. That's the GPT. And that's a type of large language model, but it focuses on generating human-like text based on the input we give it. So now two other terms that are becoming a lot more popular these days, and many of you have probably heard them. One is prompt engineering. So that's the actual craft of writing effective prompts or effective instructions that we're feeding these GPTs to help you get more useful results from the AI. And then the newest term is you're hearing about the rise of AI agents, right? So AI agents are really self-directed digital assistants, if you will. They're going to take in data, make decisions, give you output, but it's running autonomously in the background without you having to feed it any additional information. All right. So just to baseline. Next slide, please. All right, so proposal writing with AI. Okay, you can go forward. All right, so making sure we understand how you can use it from RFP to draft. Let's walk through a bit of this. So with analyzing RFPs, first it can help you break down the RFP a lot more quickly and systematically, so it can extract key requirements and deliverables. It can help you identify compliance checkpoints and formatting instructions. It's going to help you flag ambiguous, flexible sections for clarification. And then once you've analyzed the RFP, AI can help you generate first drafts for sections like technical management, past performance. It's really particularly useful for rewriting boilerplate to match your RFP language, the agency's language and tone. It can also suggest content based on your NAICS code or CPARS rating or past history of contracts that you've held, which can all save you time and take you past just having a blank page, right? It can also suggest win themes. So it can, with the strategic thinking, it can help you align your proposal strengths with stated agency needs. It can highlight your company differentiators, what makes you different based on maybe cost or how you reduce risk. It can support your strategy brainstorming for best value narratives are all key things. And then finally, AI can help you map out the players potentially behind procurement. So maybe suggesting likely contracting officers, program managers, recommending methods to locate opportunities, and even helping you infer key players based on prior contracts and programs. So, used together, these capabilities can help save you time and improve your proposal quality, and help you position your business more competitively. All right, next slide. All right. All right, so I just want to give you an example. I'm going to take control of the screen. Thank you for that. And I'm just going to share a quick example of how we can use it in your RFPs. So I am in Chat GPT. There are many other tools. If you're using Copilot or Gemini or those things, they work much the same. I'm using a paid version of Chat GPT. I started a new chat over here. All right, and so I have this particular prompt that I want to add. So I'm responding to a government solicitation. So I've already done the legwork. I found a solicitation out there for a new parachute harness system. I'm going to actually attach the solicitation Q&A and performance parameters. All right, so give me a minute. I'm going to Here you can add files directly from a drive or from your desktop. All right, so give me a minute. Let me pull this in. 1 second. All right, so I am attaching both of those documents. And from that, I'm going to ask, please summarize the key technical requirements and any areas where innovation or alternative designs are acceptable. I wanted to suggest 5 win themes a small business could use to stand out. I wanted to draft the sample technical response paragraph, and I wanted to identify likely influencers or stakeholders involved in this type of acquisition. All right, so I'm going to put that prompt in and I hit enter and give it just 1 second. And literally it feels like 1 second, right? And so just from that, it's taking these files that I found and it's summarizing them for me. So I don't have to necessarily read through and pull all this information out. And just like I asked it, it's giving me the key technical requirements. It is giving me 5 win themes for my small business. So human-centric fit and comfort are important. Being lightweight and compact, enhanced margins, all those safety margins rather, are helpful. It has drafted for me a sample technical response paragraph, and it's given me likely stakeholders and influencers that are part of that program. And then just for grins and giggles, it's asking me, hey, do you want me to go one step further and build a compliance matrix for you? So it will do that, and the tool, chat, and many others will suggest additional things that you can do beyond the prompt that you've given it. All right. So just wanted to show you that quick example. All right. Thank you for that. Yes, and Ron, yes, thank you, Ron. Always check the results. That is a pro tip, right? Trust but verify. And some people may say don't trust, but trust but verify. Next slide, please. All right, so go forward, please. We'll talk about some tools and use cases. But before we jump into the tools, I want to again just a point of baseline. Um, I learned more about this as I was preparing for this webinar. Someone asked a question. So, FedRAMP authorization refers to a designation given to cloud products and services that have been vetted and approved under they call it the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, FedRAMP. So, it's a government-wide program that standardizes security assessments and continuous monitoring for cloud services. So, why is that important? If you are using AI tools for proposal development or government contracts or any work involving federal data, using FedRAMP authorized tools is going to ensure you are staying compliant with government cybersecurity standards. It's going to ensure that you better protect sensitive data from being exposed and misused, and you're more likely to be trusted by contracting officers and federal partners if you're using FedRAMP authorized tools. All right, so next slide. That takes us forward to some actual top tools and use cases. So you'll notice over on the left, we talk about tools. Over on the right is just some indication of whether or not they are FedRAMP or FedRAMP authorized for secure use. All right, so I've grouped these into categories based on the top questions you all submitted before this webinar. All right, so for proposal development, you have tools like ChatGPT and Copilot, Grok, which is Elon Musk's AI tool under XAI. You have Google Gemini. You can use these to rewrite content to better match the tone or keywords of your RFP. Grammarly Jasper is a really good one for marketing writing. Grammarly Go is really great for providing templates for business writing. You could even integrate Grammarly into your browser. Which I did that on my personal computer. And so it'll check your grammar across multiple things. Even if I'm typing up a email in Gmail, it will check my grammar. So grammar is a really good one. A question was submitted also about the challenge of finding and tracking federal opportunities. So you're probably familiar with tools like GovWin and Privity, which use AI to surface leads based on your NAICS codes and keywords. And then you can also build like simple AI agents that monitor sam.gov to show you when relevant things pop up. And I'll show you an example of this in just a minute. For one big time saver that's really helpful is to use AI to search your internal files. So Microsoft Copilot is powerful if you are a SharePoint or Teams user. It can summarize documents and draft emails. Perplexity is a really strong web tool that brings sourced answers. So if you're doing proposal research or have compliance questions, it's really helpful. And then if you're a Google-based company or like us at NC State, we're a Google campus, you can use Gemini, and now you can even use chat to wrap around your Google Drives. So it can do internal document searches based on your internal documents using Gemini or chat. And so then in manufacturing, if you they have some really powerful domain specific tools. So Test Fit and Augmenta are kind of reshaping how site layouts are generated. Some firms are using Sora and Midjourney to create visuals of garments and parts and sketches. Sora is actually part of Chat. If you, especially if you have a paid version of Chat GPT, Sora is integrated into it. Midjourney has a little bit more of a learning curve, but it does a great job with image generation. But if you really can't use Midjourney unless you have a Discord account. And I know I'm throwing a lot of tools at you, but if you are a gamer or you have somebody in your life that's a gamer, you've probably heard of Discord. And so it's a social media type tool for gaming. You have to have a Discord account to use Midjourney. So just keep that in mind. In video is great. I've used it to help create presentations, to use for video marketing, to use for conferences. So you can actually change up the scripts based on the event, which is really helpful. And then lastly, manufacturing QA. Um, for manufacturing QA, something like Instrumental is being used to help manufacturers with detecting visual defects in products. So of course, not every tool I mentioned is ready for government work. You know, of course, like we said, be cautious with where your data goes. It matters. You know, look for FedRAMP authorization, and if you're handling controlled, unclassified information, make sure you're using tools that meet these NIST and CMMC standards. And then some businesses are even building their own GPTs locally, but these tools are constantly growing and evolving. So this, of course, it's not an exhaustive list, but just something to let you think about. All right, next slide. And I think this is where, let's see what the next slide is. I think this is where, yeah, I wanted to show you another example. So this is we can actually use what we call agent mode. I'm not sure how many of you have tried that, but within chat right now, they just integrated probably a few weeks ago something that they call AI agent mode. So I'm going to start a new chat. So let's say I want to build an AI agent. So remember we said that's a digital assistant who's going to help me um, with searching out on sam.gov and pulling information in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go here again to my plus sign and notice there's an agent mode. Okay, so I'm going to put it into agent mode. It gives me some suggestions of things that I can do. But I'm going to take this prompt and put it in. I said, I want you to search current opportunities in sam.gov, identifying active solicitations based on the following: NAICS code, location, set asides. I gave it some keywords. response deadlines within the next 30 days. And then I want the tool to return back to me for each opportunity, solicitation title, a summary of the requirements, due dates, set asides, and a link on sam.gov. All right, so I'm going to hit enter, but now we're not going to have time to sit here and watch it because honestly, an agent like this, well, of course, there's a got it agent, so it's getting really excited that I want to search. Something like this could take an hour or some or more, but what I want you to see is that I'm not doing anything right now, right? The tool is its own agent. It's my digital assistant, so it's out there pulling this information and it's giving me a screenshot of what it's doing in the background. So I could go do something totally different while this is building. Okay, so I just want to show you that option is available. All right, so I'm going to stop it there because it'll keep going for a while. All right. And I'm actually going to put up the results of what you would see. Okay. So I ran this agent in the background for a while, and this was the output that it gave me. And so I didn't tell it to put it in table format. You could absolutely ask it to do that. It just automatically gave it to me in a table format, which is great. And so notice here, it gives me, like I asked, the solicitation title, a summary of the requirements, my deadlines, and then a link to it on sam.gov. Okay. And just a bonus tip, you can also schedule these agents to run daily or weekly and send you a summary to your inbox. I have a daily email that I get from chat that summarizes AI in manufacturing every morning. So you can absolutely set it up to do those things. Okay. And then Lee, I wanted to toss it over to you for a minute because I think there's a database that NCMBC has that already does something similar to this.
Thank you, Adrian. Yes, we do. We have a database paid for by the state of North Carolina called matchforce.org, O-R-G. And if you're a North Carolina-based company with a North Carolina address, you can register. It takes very few minutes to register. Put your NAICS code in there, your primary NAICS code, or maybe one or two. I would suggest no more than that. And what happens is that the database will actually go out and pull through sam.gov those solicitations that you should be paying attention to. And those will be given to you almost like a concierge service, and you'll get that in your inbox somewhere around 1500, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a great service, especially for companies within North Carolina. Matchforce.org, O-R-G. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Lee. That's very helpful. And so one thing Lee brought to my attention as we were talking about this, the output here is really geared more towards primes if you're looking to be a prime. But he said, well, you know what, we have a lot of folks that we work with and a lot of the folks that will be on this webinar that are not necessarily primes. They are looking to be subcontractors or teaming partners. Maybe they just make a subcomponent of a larger component. And so how can they use AI to be helpful? So one thing that you can think about if you haven't before is using a customized GPT. All right, so what does that mean? So I'm going to take this prompt. Okay, let me copy it over here. I'm going to take this prompt. Now, I could absolutely, let me go back to chat. I could absolutely just take this prompt as it is and enter it into chat and get information back. So I'm telling the tool, you're an AI assistant helping a US-based small business that manufactures zippers for military and technical apparel. I want you to search for, summarize prime contractors that are actively bidding on or have been recently awarded or consistently win government contracts. Again, I give it criteria and then I'm telling it what I want it to return to me. And as a bonus, suggest a short professional outreach message that I can use for them. And then always present results in this format. So I could absolutely put this in there directly as is, and it will do some research and go out there and get the information for me. So this is one way to do it. Another way, though, that I think it would actually be a little bit better is to create what we call a custom GPT. So for instance, I created one for military, and I just named it military textile contract. If you look over here on chat, there is an option for GPTs. If I click on that, I can explore other. So this is a GPT within Chat GPT. So wrap your mind around that, okay? So I can explore other GPTs that people have created, and maybe I can use these, but I can also create a GPT, right? So I can look at ones that I've created for the military textile um, contract finder. You can actually go in and configure it. So, and look, before you start thinking, oh, she's a genius that she knows how to do this. No, I'm really not. I actually asked Chat GPT how to build a custom GPT, and it will give you step-by-step instructions on that. So again, you name it. You give it a description, you take your prompt and you put it right into the instructions, just like you would if you were prompting the tool normally. It will give you some sample conversation starters that you can use, right? And then just like that, now I have a GPT that I can use anytime that I want to search. And I've actually primed it with some questions. So I can ask it, hey, find me some recent prime contractors in military clothing, and it will generate that for me. So now instead of me having to build a prompt every single time and put it in, I have a custom GPT that I can use. Okay, so that's just another example. All right, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Ron to take it from here.
Great. Adrian, thank you very much. That was great stuff. So every time I sit back here and I listen to Adrian speak, I learn something new. And that means I need to go off and start training myself as well. So in this section, what we really want to walk you through is let's give some pragmatic examples of you've gotten the concepts, you've gotten the key concepts, tools, and so forth. How do we make it real? How does this apply? Let's go to the next slide. So in the case of manufacturing, what we find is typically these are the typical problems that are cited. They're very common. You're dealing with downtime, you're dealing with quality, you're dealing with production scheduling, all these different things, supply chain blind spots. The beauty about, as you saw when Adrian was talking about how searches, you can apply AI solutions to each of these different problem areas. And as you can see from this standpoint, you see the resultant impact. It's not just talking for the sake of AI can apply this. We're actually going to show some real input, real output down the road as well. So on the next slide, I'll actually walk through a real case study where we actually applied our solution, Artificially Digital. I worked with a manufacturer. They had a piece of industrial manufacturing equipment. What they were trying to do is, earlier we talked about the idea of how do we address downtime. Downtime is very expensive. For most companies, we're talking about $260,000 per day. So you can imagine the last thing you want to do is have a piece of equipment down. And what they found is with their existing approach, they were only able to predict a 1% prediction lead time and 85% confidence level. Not a lot of lead time. And so using our solution, we were able to bump that up to 200 minutes with a 97% confidence level. And the key thing here again is the fact that we were able to apply AI and being able to look. Our approach is unique. We started with the decision. We did not start with the data. Our decision here was the fact of how can we look at identifying overall, improving the predicted time frame, the likelihood, what is the system life, how is it being used, and then from that standpoint, then being able to establish a mechanism to measure and figure out ultimately how we improve the overall uptime of that piece of equipment. So even if we know its half-life or requires maintenance, we can better schedule that, and it allows us to be much more planful and not as reactive. And so this is just an example of manufacturing. The key thing here is the fact that you're able to look at your data, look at your decision, and figure out how AI can help you resolve that from that standpoint. Next slide, please. And so from that standpoint, one of the things I typically say, and I just made up this little quip, when data is in the way, AI is at play. The key thing here is your ability to simply use AI to help you use your data to make better decisions. So in the case, you can look across various verticals we have listed here, business services, how AI can apply. Very simply put, it can help you streamline operations and compliance. In logistics, we can use it to predict demand and optimize supply chain, optimize our routes. We look at healthcare. It can help personalize treatments and reduce admin burdens. Then we go over to textiles. It helps us enhance quality, demand forecasting, and sustainability. And particularly as it applies to today, we're all aware of the Berry Amendment, in which the DoD requires goods be manufactured in the U.S. This allows us to do a quick assessment of evaluating our overall goods and bill of materials and determining their source of origin. So this is another huge key benefit for you as well from that standpoint. Next slide, please. So let's talk about an action plan and how to, an overall ROI, that standpoint. Next slide, please. We've developed a 5-step AI action plan. First, we'll let this build out a little bit. Go ahead. Sorry, I got a little cute with the animation here. The key thing here is simply, very simply, you want to first and foremost, we'll talk about this, is it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want to keep it very simple. But the key thing I want to emphasize here is simply starting. Let's go to the next slide, please. First and foremost, and Adrianne called this out, she gave the terminology chart. Just learn the basics. I think oftentimes we've gotten overwhelmed with the amount of AI press and papers, articles. Why aren't you doing this? Just stop for a second. Don't be overwhelmed. Just start learning language. And these are a set of links you can play with. Just walk you through the basics. Just get you warmed up and get you started along the way and feeling comfortable about this. And then from that standpoint, by learning the bigger picture of AI, you can learn core skills. I thought Adrianne did a great job of sharing out some great examples, using simple prompts and agents, and developing your own GPTs. And then you start applying these to much more hands-on act. And then simply stay inspired. So these are a set of articles and also a daily podcast I listen to just to keep myself in the know. It's almost like watching the news every night. I keep you aware of various headlines that are taking place, any changes, any pivots, and that way I'm able to adapt accordingly. Because as Adrianne mentioned and Lee mentioned, AI has become our new reality. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of understanding what and when. Next slide, please. So we get into step 2. This is the big thing again, like everything, pick one pain point. Don't boil the ocean. Simply identify what you can. What is your biggest pain point? You can do, a simple 80-20 Pareto analysis to identify the biggest things that are impacting your organization. And typically you find is that 20% of the items that are impacting you cause 80% of your biggest headaches and your pain points. Identify those and look and figure out here how best you can identify one of those using AI. Then you go to step 3. Next slide, please. So first, one thing I always tell people, don't dive right into buying the most expensive tools. I know salespeople are very convincing, very overwhelming. Trust me, I've been guilty of this as well. But first, stop and assess yourself. What do I need? And Adrianne listed out several tools. Try out tools, figure out what your problem is and what solutions are out there you can apply to help you along the way. And most times, most of these tools have a free trial period or allow you to be able to go out there and try different things that may work for you and so forth. And so down as you see below in quality control operations and scheduling, these are some examples as it relates to the manufacturing space as well. But the key thing here, I want to further emphasize, do not look at tools as your silver bullet. They are not going to be your fix-all, but first and foremost, figure out how they can help. And then from that standpoint, learn from them, understand the gaps, understanding additionally what you'll need to do along the way. Let's go to step 4. This is the other key thing here. You're able to be, especially I say this to executives, you want to basically set an environment in which your teams can basically look and feel comfortable employing these tools. A lot of us dismiss the idea of change management. It is critical. Just because you can't walk in one day and say everyone can do AI, it doesn't work that way. You need to make your team feel comfortable about learning it, embracing it. So while you're providing the message from the top down, make sure that they're able to create momentum and excitement from the bottoms up. And you'll be able to achieve better results across the board. And that could be simple things of having your teams going off, setting time aside, doing little things, as Adrianne called out, like prompting practice, conducting mini pilots, taking the one item you're looking at here and figuring out what are approaches in which we can address it, how AI can be applied. And then from that standpoint, let's see how we improve along the way. And what you'll find is by doing that, you'll get your team excited, doing things you didn't see achievable. They'll see value, and it's not just management along the way. Let's go to step 5. So then, again, the first thing here is don't jump to the next thing right away. Get a win. Because psychologically, it gets everybody excited. They're happy across the board. Once they've seen the win, once they've seen what works, what doesn't work, they can learn from that and figure out here, okay, what is the next thing we want to tackle in our list of priorities across the board? Then we can look at identify what we want to expand. We can define overall metrics, our KPIs. We can determine who else we need to talk to. And another key thing here is also, like governance here is simply, it's like building a new highway. You need speed limits, you need traffic cops, all these different things. Why? Just to manage and make sure everything is done safely and it adheres, particularly when we talk about the DoD space. And once you see this ROI, you're able to scale carefully, you're able to structure it, you're able to partner and make sure along the way that you're able to adhere, meeting everyone's goals along the way. Okay, let's go ahead. Next slide, please. And most importantly, this is particularly perks ears of most CFOs. We need to be able to say we have an ROI. A lot of times people looked at AI and they said, okay, it reminds me early e-commerce like toys.com, pets.com back in the day. You need to make sure that your AI shows ROI. It cannot just be a buzzword. It needs to be able to deliver measurable returns for you so you're able to act on it today and also further get everyone's embracing of it. And as Adrianne showed, by employing AI, we're able to do faster proposal turnaround. We're able to allow ourselves higher contract win rates. We're also able to do faster data analysis. As you saw with the agent and the GPT, it's very quick. I can identify very quickly what proposals would make the most sense for me to apply to, and what are the key things I can employ within my practices. I can apply that proposal. Just imagine the amount of time being saved at that regard. That's huge. And then from that standpoint, then we start looking at being able to measure this, leading us to be able to increase our overall back office cost savings and hopefully our overall win rate, which is the other key thing that we all care about across the board. And I think the key thing we need to understand here is that the small wins matter. Atomic habits, every percentage point is a competitive edge. So it really is a question of your success comes down to your ability to embrace AI now. That'll determine your success down the road. Next slide, please. Okay, we talked a lot here. We talked a lot about, overall across the board, not only with the key lessons, the terminology. We showed examples of prompts, give you some pragmatic uses of how it applies. Now the key thing for us here is being able to assess what are our key takeaways. First and foremost, number one, start. It's not just simply starting small, it's just start. Get started, get comfortable, play with it in your free time, and just try it, little things along the way. And before you know it, you'll be an expert. We're also not trying to geek you out here on this stuff, but simply trying to show you how it can help you improve your work, improve your business success along the way. Then number two, try out the low-cost tools. We give you numbers. We primarily focused on the GPT search tools. There are a number of tools out there, and as Adrian mentioned, each day there's a brand new set of tools. Do not get overwhelmed and do not feel that you need to suddenly become some computer science expert learning how to code. It's simply a matter of just playing, testing, and trying out different tools, figure out the overall what works for you. And you may find you don't need 20 tools if one works for you all the time. Use that, become comfortable with that, and become an expert in that. Then we have number three. We talked about also leading to your overall success. Involve your team early, but you set the tone. You set the tone, letting your team know that AI is important, it has a value add to their business, and you give them the room to be able to test out tools, focus on a particular goal in mind. And I always say, from an agile standpoint, allow them an environment where they feel comfortable testing, experimenting, and what I call failing fast. Be able to feel comfortable experimenting, allowing yourself the room to fail fast. Don't mean you don't spend time commiserating. Learn your lesson, move on, figure out what you can do to improve along the way. And then the other key thing we highlight as well is number four, scaling only after the first ROI. Making sure you get your first win and that you're seeing success along the way. And the other key thing I always call up, number five, I'm a Peter Drucker disciple, if you will, from the standpoint of you cannot improve what you cannot measure. So the key thing along the way is make sure that you measure your performance. I actually had a client ask me one time, why do we use KPIs? Why do you use metrics? My simple answer is, why do your kids have report cards? And she suddenly got it. They did that not because simply just because, it's to show them where they are and show their improvement along the way. And that's a key reason why it's important for you all to adopt a performance management type mentality, if you will. Okay, I'll turn it back to Adrian.
All
Next
right.
one.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Ron. That was really great information as well. So just to kind of wrap up, remember, AI is not perfect, and TJ was right. It's like you knew the next slide coming, TJ, because TJ just made the point that to remember to not get lazy with AI. AI is not perfect. I thought this information over here to the right, a poll from Statista, where it was looking at where AI is currently getting its information, the top sources for 2025, and it's just amazing to me. A lot of it's coming from Reddit, Wikipedia, right, YouTube, right. So it's not perfect. It's not a good idea to just submit results directly from AI for to the DoD. A lot of people are becoming a lot more keen to the voice of AI, I guess you could say. So it's becoming a little bit easier to read something and know that AI probably generated it. So just keep that in mind. It can make mistakes. It can produce inaccurate results. We don't want to rely too heavily on it. It's going to reflect the quality and biases that are in the data that is being trained on. And then context matters. AI can misunderstand context, and it can oversimplify things. So human judgment is essential. There's also you may also want to think about establishing a company AI use statement. I do have an example, just because of time, I won't click on it, but having an AI champion in your company, as well as having a use statement for how are we going to use AI in our business, is a really good idea too, just to level set everyone. So it's a powerful tool, but like any tool, it's only as good as the hands that are guiding it. Next slide. All right, but use it as your competitive advantage, not a replacement. AI is not replacing humans, it's augmenting them. Okay, it's making your day-to-day, or hopefully making your day-to-day a little bit easier. I know I always repeat this because I just think it's a really good um, something that I've heard said in the past. AI itself may not replace people, but individuals that know how to use AI could absolutely replace those that don't. So that's really what we want to think about. How can you learn it and use it to augment your day? Those who wait risk falling behind in compliance, delivery speed, competitiveness. AI is not going away, so we've got to learn how to work with it, right? So the sooner you begin exploring it, the sooner you can build your competitive advantage. And then this is just a question that, feel free to type it in the chat or in the Q&A, and we might be able to address this towards the end. What's your biggest concern? If you haven't looked into it, if you haven't started using it, what's your biggest concern or barrier to using AI in your business? Next slide. All right, so I just want to give you just a quick update here on an upcoming webinar that we're having at NC State IES. If you're interested, if what you saw today was helpful, but you're like, hey, I want to know a little bit more about how to prompt or how to build AI agents, we do have a webinar coming up in November that goes a little bit deeper into that. Feel free to use the QR code. We'll talk a little bit more about what prompt engineering is, what some different examples of prompt frameworks are that you can use. So that's just one thing to keep on your radar. We are also thinking about how to develop classes and things like that that can help manufacturers more. Next slide. All right, so with that said, let's connect. Here's my information and Ron's information with some QR codes. I get excited about AI. I'm sure Ron does too. I love talking about AI. So I love to just, even if it's just having a conversation, I'm happy to do that. But with that, Lee, and Ron, if you don't have anything else, I'll turn it over to you to go from here.
Well, I
Thanks, Lee.
appreciate that, Adrian. Yeah, I would ask everyone if you have a question, put it in the Q&A. I see a lot of conversation back and forth in the chat, which is fantastic. It's what we want. But if you do have a question, put it in the Q&A. I'll start off with, Ron and I have been on several business visits together and talking with manufacturers, especially mostly small and medium manufacturers do have an ERP system. The one thing that we have all 100%, all the CEOs have admitted, we have an ERP, we use it, but we only use a small portion of its capability. My question, if you could share with the group, how could these CEOs start using AI to increase the capability of a system that they've already bought and paid for?
Ron, do you want to take that one? Go ahead.
Sure. So yeah, as Lee mentioned, we saw this firsthand. Of course, a lot of you have all spent the money on this, and I know it's not a very easy exercise, but the biggest thing is it's going to be a gradual process. First, as we talked about, pick one use case. We talk about pick one problem, set your clear measures, and then we just start saying, okay, what data do we need to solve that problem within our ERP? And we just look into solving that, and we run a small pilot, and we just simply review and scale. And before you know it, like as Lee mentioned, some people are using just 10, 20% of their overall ERP. And once we're able to address one business case and we start scaling up, before you know it, you're looking at leveraging more of that, and you're actually able to see a true ROI on that ERP investment. I think the other critical piece to note is the fact that, hey, we're not looking for you to spend additional money. We're now saying, how can you use the existing investment, apply AI on top of that, to figure out how you can make better advance of the usage of that ERP information from the standpoint of maximizing your investment and maximizing your overall ROI.
Great. Appreciate that clarification. Good to know. Also, a lot of our manufacturers in the DoD textile sector are using a lot of legacy equipment, second and third generation type 50-year-old machines making great product every day. How can they use, and maybe you have a test case where folks have incorporated sensors onto their machine to where it can tie into AI. So in other words, they're not having to, they're augmenting their legacy equipment to try to be more efficient.
Yeah, so I'll take that one again. I'll give you two examples. One, with the industrial manufacturing example case study I mentioned earlier, we were looking at case study. We were looking at sensors. How we bring in all this information because they have sensors from one side, they have machine information come from the actual manufacturer. How you pull this all together? Because I think the missing piece here is your ability to contextualize all this information. And once you're able to do that around a decision you're trying to solve. So once you're able to do that, that's where you become most effective. Another example, this is actually when I had hair. I worked for a company down in Charlotte called Sealand, and we were developing a client server system way back when. That was when client server was the thing. And that's where we're looking at integrating both mainframe, you had EDI messages coming in, faxes, the full nine. So you can imagine the slew of information. But the biggest thing it was we built this client server. Once you turn it on, it became garbage in, garbage out. So as you can imagine, like why is this? So then we had to develop another initiative, cleaning up the data. So that's why I always tell people don't focus so much on the tool, focus on getting your data cleaned up and organized and right. Once you've done that, then you're able to execute much more effectively and really see the overall ROI on your investments.
Good deal. Thank you very much. You know, CEOs and executives are all about mitigating risk. When incorporating an AI strategy, what do you think are risks that every CEO slash executive needs to look at when incorporating and implementing a strategy like this?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so definitely, and Ron touched on this under the action plan, but again, starting small. I'm a big, my background and what I teach every day, at IES, is around processes, right? So I'm a really firm believer. A lot of people say start with data with AI, clean up your data, and that's great, but I think you really need to start with processes, right? So what are our key processes? And then when you understand that, then you can think about, okay, for that process, what data do I already have available? So I think, understanding your business processes, and then cleaning up your data to make, but AI is getting to the point now where, yes, data is important, but there are still some ways it can work around even messy data. So things like that help. I think over reliance on AI too, you want to make sure. That's why I said having like an AI um, kind of framework and use statement. This is how we're going to use it. This is how we're going to integrate it. Determining what specific tool we're going to use. So all of those things can help, as well as, once you do start to integrate it, scaling based on impact. So we're not going to scale unless we see that there's some benefit from it as well. And then, like Ron said, just, don't jump on the latest tool bandwagon. Really find a tool that's going to be useful for you and your company. Yeah. I hope that answered it, Lee. Ron, did you have any
Yeah, I
other?
want to chime in real quick. So these are the typical risks you run into, right? First and foremost, I'm looking because it's cybersecurity and IP protection.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, as Adrian mentioned, look at how you can establish processes, governance models to better manage that, mitigate that. Because here's the other reality. You're not going to be able to eliminate risk. It comes down to your ability to effectively manage that risk. Number two, you get into regulatory and compliance. So Adrian already mentioned one mitigation, and that is using authorized tools. That's one step. And then, of course, you need to make sure you're aware of these standards, and you also look at how can you employ AI to help you make sure the things that you're doing, whether it be your responses, whether it be your processes, so forth, that they in fact also can adhere to AI, can adhere to these compliance guidelines as well. Then you get to other risks, is workforce resistance. And so the key thing we talked about that is simply put, your ability to engage your team, get them embracing AI and working along the way, and helping you define the rules along that. Because what you find is by them working alongside with you in defining those guidelines, will also help you better enforce them because they're going to be self-managing each other, which is much, much more effectively for them to do than you to do. And then lastly, execution risk. And the key thing we also talk about here is simply don't go for the big bang. Don't try to do it all at once. Take it small and get your win and move forward and scale. And that's what we look at from an overall risk mitigation approach.
Great advice. Just a follow-up question to what you said about the leadership slash CEO's clear message. When we look at the factory workers, if you will, all they read about is how AI is going to take over my jobs and this, that, and the other. So, what would be really a sample clear message that a CEO can start with to try to engage and get everybody behind an AI strategy moving in the same direction, same pace?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from what I've seen to be most effective is I'm never going in there saying this will replace you because as Adrian mentioned, it can complement you. It really is someone who knows these tools that's going to replace you. So when I look at it, I would simply sit down with them and say, okay, talk to each of your team members, identify something that really is bothering them or working, and ask them the simple question, how do you think you could use AI to help you solve that? And by getting in that mindset, they better understand it as a tool that can augment their services, get them to focus on more value-added work, and help address some of the mundane stuff. Like Adrian mentioned, very cool tool. Hey, you got a GPT or an agent that can run a search for me. That saves me hours upon like a day. I mean, that's huge. So just imagine offering that same task or responsibility over to a worker. Adrian.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, no, you summed it up great, Ron.
When we talk about workforce, which is always a conversation, especially in the textile world, trying to find the right people and to do the right jobs. What do you think about what a CEO slash executive should think about as far as talent? More retraining? Are they going to need to augment their workforce, or what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, so if you are if you already have folks on staff and you're integrating AI, I think it's going to be valuable and important to train people on the specific tools that they'll be using. I mean, there's a lot of like general AI training out there that people can use just to get a baseline, like on, LinkedIn Learning. OpenAI has that for ChatGPT. OpenAI has their own OpenAI Academy. So just things like that. But I think you get more benefit once you actually integrate it and and then start training people. Even if you're using specific tools like instrumental things like that, the vendor has training that you can bring into your facility. But I think looking for if you're hiring people and you're thinking, what type of things, I know I want to move towards this, what should I look for in a workforce? I think it's really the general things, people that even if they're not technically savvy, maybe they have an eye towards continuous improvement. They have an eye towards always wanting to learn and grow, and they're teachable. Those type of things I think are really important to look for. And then I think Ron touched on this, just making it clear to people that what the AI is there to do. It's not there because I know we talk a lot about ethics and things like that in AI, but I don't think we talk enough about, just worker what's the word I'm looking for? Worker empowerment, or just
Mhm.
making workers feel comfortable with it, so that they know, hey, this AI is not spying on me, right? It's not going to tell on me and it's not going to replace me, but I can use it. So just making them comfortable with it, I think will kind of set the stage for them even feeling comfortable with learning more about it.
Yeah, and Lee, if I could just add to that, Adrian touched on the key points. I look at it's not just talent, it's also culture as well.
Hmm.
That's what she was alluding to from the standpoint of there's the talent stuff, obvious things. You need to retrain and reskill staff. So this is no brainer. Learn new tools. Things are evolving. The world is not static. We need to embrace change. And I think that's always the fundamental thing that gets overlooked across the board. People think things are static. They're not. We're not using atlases. We're not, using maps when we drive. We're using like Waze, Google Maps, and so forth. So, in that standpoint, your business needs to embrace change.
Hmm.
Then the other thing is know what you do well and also be able to identify when you should leverage vendor expertise, external expertise early. So that way you're not spinning your wheel around the axle. You're actually taking time. This is what we know. This is what we don't know. We believe this is important. Let's find the right advice we should bring in to be able to get us accelerated down the road. That's not their fix, but it allows you to further figure out what you can do to train your team down the road. And then that allows you, furthermore, going back to something Adrian said, you want to build your skills in house over time. I think the other key thing is well tied to talent. You could say it's between talent and culture. The reward structure also needs to change. And that's another thing that also gets missed. Because you're measuring people differently, the rewards need to change as well. And so that's really where you start looping in HR, saying here, how knowing that people are learning or being expected to do something new and different, how do we need to change how they're compensated or accordingly or rewarded for that behavior? And so then we get into the culture side, which is really more the mindset side. We talked about the ability, as Adrian mentioned, you have to create an environment that supports curiosity and openness. You then, furthermore, what we ask for in AI, trust and transparency. You need to collaborate, stating the obvious. There needs to be a mentality of continuous learning, and leadership needs to be signaling. It needs to come from the top that, hey, this is the must model, and reinforce AI adoption. And lastly, of course and foremost, incentivize people to make and adopt AI across the board.
That's great.
Good
That's
stuff.
great.
Yeah.
Most of our companies, small and medium, are going to probably use an open AI system. But would there be a trigger point for a CEO to say, "Hey, I want to do a closed or a private system"? Have you had any experience with that, or what would
Yeah.
you use as a criteria there?
Yeah, an open system, just going out and kind of openly, of course, if you have like a free version of a Chat GPT or something, it's the wild, wild west. Your data is is totally open to anybody. There are the paid version is said to be a little bit more private, and but I still think that they are training, based on some of that data. But yeah, definitely, if you're trying to protect your data, keep it private. I'll give you a good example. There's a company called Spiritus Systems. They are actually they do DoD contracting here in North Carolina, and they decided to use Copilot. They chose one tool. They said we're going to go with we're already using Microsoft. We already have Microsoft 365, Microsoft Teams. So they decided to go with Copilot. And they actually integrated Copilot into their systems. And so with that, now, when they are emailing, when they can use it for HR related tasks, they're moving it into their production, right? And so for them, the ROI was there to invest in Copilot so that they could keep all their information and their data private, and they could continue to scale it and use it in multiple areas of business. So if you're just doing if you get people comfortable with putting clean data into the system, like, we're just going to use generics, we're not going to use, important product specs and things like that, then I think you're okay. But if there's any concern that people may not know how to do that or be comfortable with doing that, or they may actually put some proprietary information, then it's probably worth investing in and thinking about how you can move to a more closed or private system.
Yeah, I mean, and tied to that, and not to be to gross anyone out, public is like in the public pool. You don't bring all your tools, you don't bring all your swimming
Mhm.
around us. And so just keep that in mind. And so it really comes down to the cost of privacy and what's not worse to you. A lot of you have very sensitive IP. And so it may be well worth it. Just simply you want to be able to control what information gets entered in within your house and what information leaves your house. So it really is a there right off the bat I mentioned earlier in the note, do not put your private information out there. That's one thing. But then you realize the more if you want to take full advantage of these various AI tools, you want to keep it very locked and safe along the way. And so open source is open for a reason. So keep that in mind. Anything you put out there can and will be used. So from that standpoint, if it matters to you, if it costs you money, so forth, if you've already made the investment in the IP, it makes sense for you to invest in a very locked down tool along the way.
Mhm.
Good deal. Good deal. There's been so much information put out, and I know you guys digest a majority of that. Uh, you know, I, AI's been really in the headlines for the last few years now. If you had a crystal ball, looking out in the next 3 to 5 years, where do you see this thing going? And I just love to hear both of y'all's perspective.
Mm. Yeah, go ahead, Ron. I'll let you jump on that one first.
Okay. I think the biggest thing we're seeing more and more is right now when I look at the various tools like ChatGPT, and like Jasper, Gemini, etc. I look at those as providing a nice, avenue for people to embrace him. But I also look at like very much, there's where I'm really dating myself, like Encyclopedia Britannica. And so you're going to give you a lot of general information, but down the road, you're going to need much more specific, much more things that are deeper based on your vertical. So you're going to see less of the large language models and more of the small language models that have a deeper expertise. And this can be a matter of once you build those, everything's going to embrace on those. You're going to build expertise. And that's where you start seeing more and more of this talk around agents and people
Mm.
stacking on that. So that's one thing. Two, I think another key thing you're going to see a bigger concern along the way is overall data governance. Right now, we're assuming a lot of us that AI is telling us the truth, that the results can be trusted. And in fact, as Adrian showed in that slide, yeah, a lot of stuff is coming from Facebook, from Reddit, from Google, and we all know there's stuff we share and don't share for a reason. So therefore, it's going to be highly incumbent upon us to address these overall concerns. This was not really addressed in the White House note, but I think more and more we're going to see the importance of data, governance, the ability to minimize data bias, to ensure that we get information and data allows us to drive the best results across the board. And then lastly, what I think you're also going to see is simply put, more and more you're going to see more AI experts, but you're going to need, as Adrian mentioned, there is going to be an increased need to trust but verify. We're seeing a lot of deep fakes now, a lot of videos and so forth. We have to ask ourselves the truth. So therefore, it becomes much more incumbent upon us to hey, trust and verify before we just simply share it out and go with what's being said.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I totally agree with everything Ron said. You know, when I said rise of AI agents, I mean that really is true. There's a lot of focus on how to have AI agents or digital assistants that are out there doing work for you. In multiple areas of your business, right? So working alongside the AI in that way. Some of you may have heard this new term that's being thrown around called vibe coding. So vibe, VIBE coding. So like if you are someone that is familiar with how to code things, now with having these AI tools, you can actually code in natural language and you can actually prompt it. So instead of you having to know how to code, or let's say you want to create an app for your manufacturing floor. I played around with this a little bit, just creating an app for there's a new tool out there. Google has an experimental tool called Opal, OPAL. If you want to create an app for like maybe your quality techs that have to answer multiple audits or participate in multiple audits, and so you can create a app for them that will build a report based on what standards you feed it, things like that. So normally you would have to have coding experience for that. Well, now you don't have to. You can just type that in as a prompt. So you're starting to see a rise in more things like that. What are other ways we can use this natural language to do things that would normally take a lot of tech experience? And then one thing that I thought was really interesting in that AI action plan that the White House put out was a lot of emphasis on workforce and like apprenticeships. So I think we're starting to see more about, how can we um, have apprenticeships and partnerships with community colleges and things like that for AI, so that we're bringing young people out of school and out of trade schools and things like that that are familiar with how to use AI when they come into a company. So those are definitely some big trends I see coming down the road.
There was an acronym used called CPARS, which is Contractor Performance Assessment Report.
Mm,
Is kind of what the DoD uses to, if you will, give a report card to a vendor.
mhm.
And the question is, do you think AI can help with crafting responses to a CPAR?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, I've used it to help. Yeah, I'm not totally familiar with what those look like, honestly, Lee. But I know I've used it. For instance, let's see. I had to do a audit, AS 9100 audit for a client a couple weeks ago, and I took all of the findings, and I said, kind of made it generic and said, help me come up with. Help me link this directly back to the non-conformance and the standard. So then I didn't have to go pull up the standard and read it and write out the language and all that. And help me come up with, opportunities for improvement and things like that. And so it can help you craft that language. And I mean, it took me something that would normally take me a few hours to to work on. I was able to do in, 30 minutes or less, and it just saved me a lot of time. Of course, I had to go back and tweak it and make it applicable for that particular client, but it just can save you a lot of time. So I don't see why it couldn't, Lee, quite honestly, but I've never tried that.
And
Gotcha.
Lee, we actually, again, before AI is where it was, we developed a module. Again, I'm dating myself when I had hair, I had vitality. We developed a tool working with the automotive manufacturer, developing a scorecard system. They had over like 400 manufacturers, 400 vendors rather. And so what they're looking to do is to use a scorecard, score them. But what we can now apply AI to do is not only score them, get it down to the transaction level and allowing vendors to come back and respond to, hey, why were you late? And that way you can do a much more clear transparency and much more cross board responsiveness, what we can do, how we're improving it, allowing to do better tracking, better compliance management. So that's definitely in the realm of possibilities because we were doing it 20 years ago.
Mhm.
Excellent. Thank you. I don't see any other QAs. I
Um,
appreciate you
I do
guys.
see I do see one here real quickly. It looks like Rena. I'm not sure if she's still online.
She was
Uh,
asking something about the health concerns that you.
Yeah, she was asking about hallucinations. I'm not sure if she's still online. So hallucinations, for those that may not be familiar, it's where you get information that seems plausible, but it's incorrect, when you're working with AI. And so early on when you're prompting, um, hallucinations tend to show up if you are using very vague prompts or
Gotcha.
you're missing context. And so that's why I'm a really big fan of using prompts that include some type of context to it. If you're using it over a long period of time, maybe like, hey, I'm working on a proposal or something like that. So I'm doing multiple things in it for a while. You might see some drift where the model starts filling in gaps instead of staying grounded. So some ways, Rena, that could help with that. You could ask it for citations and sources where possible. So like if it's a SAM .gov contract, for instance, always check it against the actual database. Never assume that what it's giving you is what's there, or even that it's still relevant. It's still, even if you're asking for, hey, things that have happened within the last 30 days, it still could be erroneous. So always anchor it in facts. And then you can even set some guardrails and do like a self check. So you may add in a line in that prompt that says something like, hey AI, do this for me, but if you don't know how to do it, say so, you know, or list the assumptions that you're making separately. One big kind of thing that I always, not always, but sometimes I'll put in a prompt if I know it's going to be fairly, maybe I don't even know what to ask it, right? I know around about what I'm trying to get to, but I don't even know. I'll say, hey, do this, but is there any additional information you need to know before you start? And the AI will actually break down for you, hey, okay, I think I can help you, but before I can do that, tell me this, tell me that, tell me, and it'll give you a list of things that you can add in that will help it make its search more useful for
Right.
you. So hopefully that helps, Rena. Mhm.
Yeah, also real quick before I go, Lee. So one of the things that we have developed in our solution is to address hallucinations. But as Adrian talked about, it really just comes down to your solution simply just making up information. That's all hallucination really means. It's making like before I've used AI and like, hey, give me a quote, it'll make it up. I'm like, who said that? And you're like Ron Berry. I'm like, I didn't say that. So you always need to trust your results, but at the same time, understand there are limitations to the existing model, and there may be due to overtraining, means they're getting trained so much, and there are no mechanisms in place to score overall. Are the models staying active? Are they staying constant? I know Tim put some examples in there, but more and more look and but as Adrian, there's manual ways in which you're testing the data that you're using, you're looking at the tool, you're looking at the prompts, you're verifying results, and there are more automated solutions which we've developed along the way. I could talk to you about more and more about because again, that's going to be a very critical area.
Well, I sure appreciate you guys clarifying that term because I wasn't sure exactly what that meant.
Yeah.
So thank you very much on that. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. Boy, this has really been a fantastic interaction. You can tell by the chat, a lot of folks have really enjoyed you guys. We appreciate it. On behalf of the North Carolina Military Business Center, I just want to sincerely thank Adrian and Ron for sharing their expertise with us today. And to all you industry partners that have invested your time to be a part of this important discussion. North Carolina Military Business Center is here to support you. If we can be of assistance, please visit us at www.ncmbc.us. And there's a range, you'll find on our website, there's a range of no cost webinars and low cost events that can help you build your business and connect with other primes and subcontractors as well. So we appreciate that. Our goal here is to make you more competitive and ultimately more profitable. So thank you again for joining us today. And we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you all.